In this video tutorial, we are going to use Java to build the dashboard that you see on your screen. The dashboard uses UI libraries from MindFusion Pack for Java Swing, a spreadsheet, a diagram, and a chart. The dashboard data is updated dynamically whenever the user selects a new cell from the list of states in the left spreadsheet. We start by creating an empty Java project in IntelliJ. We call it Dashboard. We create an empty directory called libs. There we will copy the jpack.jar file that represents the UI controls. Then we add a new class called MainWindow. We make it extend JFrame and we add the main method with the default code for rendering the window when the application starts. We add several class variables, the content pane, a titled border, and we implement the default constructor for MainWindow. In it, we set the size of the application, the default operation on window close, and the window title. We set grid layout as the layout manager for the content pane. The grid consists of 2 rows and 2 columns. We don't make any more changes to the default settings, which means that the grid orientation will be horizontal and left to right. We have to add to the build path of the project the JAR file with MindFusion's UI controls, which we will use. Now we can declare 2 global workbook view instances, one for each of the 2 spreadsheets. Let's create a workbook instance, which will be rendered in the workbook view. If we look at the online documentation, we can see that Workbook exposes many properties for customization, and Workbook View has set workbook method, which is how you add a workbook to it. If we open the delivery XML file that contains the dashboard data, we can see that the data consists of state nodes, and each state node has a single child node, cities. Cities has multiple children, each one for containing data for one city in this state. The data imitates the coverage of a courier company with offices across the USA. We initialize a worksheet for this spreadsheet. A new spreadsheet is always returned when you call the add method on a workbook. You do not create a worksheet with a constructor. We set the number of columns and rows of the worksheet, 20 and 100 respectively. We use the getColumns method to get the first 3 columns of the sheet, one by one, and assign titles to them. We need to make the first column larger. It will render the name of the state, and we must have space for the names to fit. We add the SoCreated Workbook View object to the content pane of the window. Remember that due to the default settings of the grid layout, this workbook will take the cell in the upper left corner of the view. Then we call a method we are about to write, called AssignData. In the AssignData method, we are going to parse the XML file that we added to our project. We do this with the classes from the JavaX XML parser package, Document Builder Factory, and Document Builder. We also use the document class from the orgw3c DOM package. We create a new Java IO file instance where we try to load the delivery XML file. Then we try to parse the file with an instance of the Document Builder class. In the XML code, we have nodes called state with attributes. Let's get the element for the XML for the document instance that stores the parsed XML file. We get the state nodes from this element. We cycle through all of them and get the attributes, name, offices, and rating on each one. You remember these were all 3 of the attributes. Then, we assign the values to the cells in the first, second, and third column of the active sheet in our workbook. With each iteration, we move to the next row. Let's run the project now. Here is our spreadsheet with the data of the states. It takes the first cell in the layout grid. Since there is nothing else on the row, it takes all the space. Let us now create a second workbook for the data that is nested inside each state node. We create the second workbook view and add it to the content pane of the window. The grid layout will place the new workbook in the second grid cell at the first row. We add now a new workbook to the employees view. This workbook has the same properties as the states workbook. We will add a new worksheet to it. When we call Add on the worksheets collection of the workbook, a new worksheet is created, added to the workbook, and returned by the method. We set its column count to 20 and rows to 100. We get the first column and set its title to City. Let's look at the column collection class in the online documentation. When we get a column of the collection, the column instance has lots of methods for customizing the column. We use setTitle to specify the name of the column. The last thing to do about the worksheet is make the first column larger. The name attribute can have cities with quite long names, so we can expand the column to 150 pixels. Now we go to the Assign Data method and add the code that will fill the data in the second workbook. First, we get the only child of the XML node called Cities. There are the city records with data for each city in each state. We get the city nodes in a node list. Then we have to cycle through all those nodes and parse the data in each one of them. When we have initialized the node, we get the data for its city name, employee count, and coverage. The employee count is integer and the coverage is a double value, so we have to parse them. At the end, we assign the new values to the cells at the respective column in the second grid. There is one difference to the previous code. We will format the third column to render the double values as percents. Since this is done for each state, we have to put it in an if case. Initially, we will fill data only for the first state. Here are the two spreadsheets. They are rendered under each other because there are currently no other controls in the grid. The data is correct, but we will add now a new feature. When the user selects a state from the first spreadsheet, the data in the second grid will be updated accordingly. We will handle two events, which are members of ViewListener. One is cell clicked and the other column clicked. We need to know which was the row that was clicked. We can get the row index from the event data. Once we know the index of the row, we call a method called onChange, which we will implement next. We call onChange from the cell clicked event only when the first cell in the row was clicked. This means, if the user clicks on a cell that is not name of a state, we do nothing. In the onChange method, we first check if the cell clicked contains text. It is possible that the user has clicked on an empty cell. Then we get the node with the provided index and its only child node, cities. We get the node list with city elements, and now we will cycle through them. We get the city name, which is the value of the name attribute in the city node. We can copy the code from the assignedData method, where we did the same. Once we have parsed all data for this row, we assign it to the cells of the second worksheet, which was called employees. We can run the application now and see what we have done. Here it is. When we click on a state name, the data in the second grid gets updated with the list for its cities. We click on an empty cell, no reaction. We select a row. The data gets refreshed. So, we are already implementing the spreadsheets. In the next video, we will deal with the tree map layout for the data, and then comes the chart. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your interest in MindFusion Developer Tools.